Hi, I'm Jennifer DeBenedictis. I'm one of the lab instructors for Apsc 1299, and this video is to tell you a little bit about how the labs work. So first of all, there is an equipment kit that you're going to be signing out on your first lab period. So it's a little kit, contains most of what you need for the semester. You sign it out on the first lab period, and then you'll hand it back in at the end of the course or if you drop the course. The labs are worth 25% of your course grade, and the final project is worth 30% of your course grade. So over half your marks in this course come from work you do in the lab room. So just be ready for that. We do work you hard in the labs because it's a big chunk of your grade. You are given a full week to complete each experiment. So for example, you'll start your first lab in the first lab period, and then it's actually due at the beginning of the second lab period. So you have the full week to complete lab 1, and then you'd hand it in at the beginning of the second lab period, and then you'd start your second lab for the next week. Generally speaking, you do need that much time to complete your labs. The labs aren't really designed for you to be able to finish them in 3 hours. So plan to show up to the lab period, spend the full 3 hours working on your lab, and then plan to spend about an hour a day for the rest of the week until it's done to get it completed. And as I said, it'll be due at the beginning of your next lab period. It's also a good idea to start early on your labs for 2 reasons. 1, if you start the night before it's due, you'll probably run out of time. And 2, if you wind up with an equipment issue, you won't be given an extension for that. So part of the reason why we give you the full week is that if you have an issue, something's not working, you still have time to get in touch with your lab instructor or the lab technician, get your equipment sorted out, and still complete your lab on time. So start early just to make sure that you don't run into any equipment issues. As I said, the previous week's lab is going to be due at the beginning of the lab period. You'll be handing it in electronically, and I've got a separate video to explain how you do that. So the grading in this course is a little different than you may be used to. You will be graded out of 10 for each lab. 5 of your marks come from being done on time, and the other 5 come from the quality of your note-taking. I'll talk more about those things in a moment. You're not graded on correctness. So what I mean is if your lab instructor notices that you've made an error, they'll point it out to you, but you don't lose any marks for that. Our rationale for this is that we're really here just to facilitate your education. The stuff you learn in the labs is what you need to know to do the final project, and so it really is your responsibility if you don't quite understand something to track it down and get it figured out. We'll help with that, but you want to be the one figuring out the stuff that you don't quite understand yet. So we don't knock you down for errors, we just want you to take a good record of what you did. Now, as I mentioned, you're going to get 5 marks for being done on time. So your labs are due at the beginning of the lab period, and if your lab's not completely done at that point and handed in, you lose the full 5 marks. So it's 50% of your grade automatically if you hand something in incomplete or late. Our rationale for that is if we gave you the whole week to complete the lab, you can't really argue you needed the whole week plus half an hour to finish the last little bit. You should have managed your time better. So it's a hard deadline. You get it in on time and complete, or you lose the full 50%. Now, obviously, if there's some extenuating circumstances, like you were sick or you had a family emergency or blew a tire, we can make exceptions for that sort of stuff. Get a message to your lab instructor as soon as you can. So email them or even phone somebody you know in the lab and have them tell the lab instructor what's happening. We can be lenient about the deadline if we know you're dealing with something, but if we don't hear from you, it's the full 5 marks off. The other half of your marks are going to come from the quality of your note-taking, and there's a separate video covering how to do that. So watch that carefully because that's the other half of your grade. And basically what you're going to be doing is making a really good technical diary of everything you did in the lab as you did it, including things that didn't work out on the first try. So watch that video carefully to learn how to take notes in your logbook. The labs are considered part of the course requirements. You do have to complete them all in order to pass the course. So every experiment has to be completed and handed in. Even if you had to hand it in late and lost those 5 marks, you still need to hand it in. So it's very normal in this course that you would collaborate with other students and talk to other students about the lab. That's okay, and it's encouraged. However, we do want to let you know what we consider over the line in terms of working with other students, and that is copying, basically. So it's okay if you're talking to other people about how to write your code, but everybody needs to write their own individual code, and you can't hand in the same code as somebody else. So basically the rule is never give a copy of your code to any other student. That all by itself is considered academic dishonesty, even if they don't use it. So never give a copy of your code away. It's okay to point to the screen or to write out pseudocode or to talk to each other about what you've put in your code, but everybody needs to write their own independent code. And if you turn in the same code as somebody else, we consider that plagiarism, and we have a policy of writing those cases up to the dean's office in every case. So just be aware of that. You're welcome to talk to other students about how to do the labs, but don't ever give somebody a copy of your work. On the Moodle website, you're going to find a bunch of code that you need to do your labs, so a little bit of supplied code that you start with. There's also videos showing you how to do things. Some of these I've already mentioned, like how to write up notes and how to hand in your work electronically, but there's also for each of the labs some little short videos explaining how to do certain skills. I consider those ones to be a good idea to watch, but they're mostly optional. So if you think you would benefit, go ahead and watch those videos too. Questions are very normal in this course. There's a lot of technical stuff, especially at the beginning. It can be a little overwhelming. So do ask your lab instructors lots of questions. It's totally normal and okay, and we're expecting that. So come to the lab periods, talk to us in person, and feel free to email a question if you're outside the lab. If you are emailing a question, try and provide a lot of technical information about the issue that you're having. So for example, a screenshot of the error messages, or paste in snippets of your code, or send a photo of your circuit, stuff like that. So make sure your lab instructor has lots of technical information if you're asking them a question via email. Good luck on the labs this semester.